Kia ora.
Kia ora.
Speaker.
Melissa Lee.
Mr. Speaker, it is the Chinese Language Week, and I'd like to first of all greet everyone in the House. 大家好, ni hao, ni hao. So, earlier, the Speaker had in fact commented to some members criticizing their so-called reading of their speeches. And I'd just like to sort of make a comment that for some of us who actually speak English as a second language, it does take a little time to process the written words sometimes, and sometimes we do need the visual aid to actually get the thinking process done. And I think it does actually, sometimes it is in fact a requirement for us to actually read some documents, because what we think in our language and what we say out loud are not necessarily same language, and there is a process that actually happens. So I just want to seek the Speaker's indulgence if we do in fact refer to our notes occasionally, and also
Reference
to some members. And some members, I mean, I'd just like to acknowledge Tracy Martin, who actually spoke passionately about this bill. And sometimes she speaks so passionately, she does it at such a speed, then same problem. Sometimes we need to process that information. It just sounds like noise sometimes. So she needs to slow down a little bit.
So back to the bill.
Back to the bill, sir. This bill is part of the government's work to provide the best education service for our children. And as earlier members have actually said, our children are in fact the future of this country. We need to provide them with the best possible education system. And this update, first update in 27 years, is long time in coming, sir. And when you think about 27 years, it's almost as long as I've actually lived in this country. And New Zealand, oh, that's true, Mr.
Longer.
It might be slightly longer than he's been alive, actually. But if you think about the changes that this country has gone through in that time, I remember mobile technology being, introduced. I mean, mobile phones were not that, they were very expensive, Mr. Seymour, back then. They weren't as cheap or easily accessible. Talking about the lovely cuisines, the variety of cuisines that it currently exists, it didn't exist back then either. So times have moved on. Education needs to move on as well to make sure that we provide the right education system for the time. So I know you actually said bring it to the education system. I just want to say, sir, this legislation will update the 1987 Act to be more relevant to modern schools. It will deal with the areas in law that are now obsolete, out of date, or insufficient for the needs of the 21st century learning, and put better practices into place, sir. The current rules do not actually work effectively for our children, and I think this is a great bill, and I look forward to the submissions during the Select Committee process, sir. Thank you.
A 5-minute call on behalf